If I turn it once, we got sport mode. Then we got sport plus, we got race mode, and we got race plus. And you will notice a difference when you put your foot down. It's dead easy to install. That one day where you want to get off the line really quickly, it will help you. It really will.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move on.
So very simply, just behind this pedal is the connection. This is a fly-by-wire pedal. It's electronic connection as opposed to the old-fashioned cables. And all I've done is put the connection box for the sprint booster up above inside that panel there. I was going to show how I installed it, but it's pretty self-explanatory. But it gives you an idea. You can't see it, it's tucked away. Once it's done, that's it, installed. Once you've got the sprint booster installed, the other end of the cable, which connects down to the pedal, the connection here, which you can then adjust and turn. If I put the ignition on, you'll see that it lights up. There you go. We're in normal right now. If I turn it once, we got sport mode. Then we got sport plus, we got race mode, and we got race plus. So from the normal position to the R plus or race plus, you've got 4 different increments of rapidness to when you put your foot on the throttle. And going back the other way, we've got E for efficiency, and then we got E plus, which is even more efficient. And I'm going to talk about that to explain why these two here, as well as being more efficient, actually serves a further purpose. Okay, so let's go back in time a little bit. Back in the day, you used to have something called a carburettor. When you put your foot on the accelerator, on the throttle, there was a physical link between the throw of the pedal, and that connected to the link which get to a carburettor in the engine. So for those who don't know what a carburettor is, it's a device which adjusts the airflow and the fuel mixture. Back in the old days, I remember having a car which had a choke, and the choke does pretty much exactly as it sounds. So when the engine is cold, you need more fuel. You need to have the engine running richer. So what you did, you choke the air, which basically allowed more fuel into the engine. You get the engine going, and once it got to an operating temperature after a few minutes, you would then push the choke in. That then allowed more air in, and you have a leaner burn. So the carburettor now is working far more leanly. You're an absolute genius, by the way, if you've subscribed and give me a thumbs up, so thank you in advance. Now that little manual adjustment is what electronic ignitions and timing and car ECUs, that's what they do automatically. They don't, this is done thousands of times every few seconds. So there's no longer any requirement to adjust the fuel. It's all done as the computers in the car work out what is the best setup, depending on conditions, depending on the climate that you're in the country, depends on how hot or cold. That's all been taken care of for you. But in so doing so, the car has to do a little bit of thinking. And even though computers are fast, it's still not quite as rapid as the old days of when you used to put your foot on the carburettor and bang, you had that instant acceleration. There wasn't anything to calculate. It may not have been as nicely set up, but nevertheless, you still had that instant power. So to get around this problem, this is where the sprint booster comes in. Now I've been driving with this sprint booster installed for well over a year, and I can tell you, despite probably what you've heard on a lot of websites, there is a fundamental difference when you use it. But we've got to look at what is the difference between, is it better, i.e. is it faster, do you accelerate quicker, or does it give you more power? And there's a difference. And this is what my take on what the differences are. So if you have it in, let's say you have it in race mode. When you put it in race mode, when you put your foot down, there's an instant bite. It will instantly acceleration to the point that it feels like you've actually stepped on the throttle far too fast. And that's because all of the control, all of the smoothness, the pickup, all of the things that the ECU would be doing to give you that nice smooth acceleration has now been gone, and it will give you that instant power. Just think of it like this, just as if you put your foot down on the throttle and you've managed to go 3/4 of the throttle down, and you go to that instantly. So there's no calculation, if you like. it will go instantly to that point. And in so doing so, the net result of that is that the car will accelerate that fraction quicker. It doesn't necessarily give more fuel. It doesn't give anything more different than the fact that you're able to get to that 3/4 of a speed, if you like, on your pedal quicker than you would do if you let the car calculate it without the sprint boost. Now we're talking here fractions of a second, but in the motorsport industry, those fractions of a second, they make all the difference. And you will notice a difference when you put your foot down. It's, I would say, at the most 0.5 to 3/4 of a second quicker than if you just put your foot hard down on the throttle to get that acceleration. So that's when you're racing, that's when you got it on race. Now, if you have it on the other settings, of which there's 4, then you probably got something like, let's say, full race will give you all the way as if your foot is hard down on the throttle. The next stage down 3/4, the next stage down I'd say about half, and then the one stage up from your normal is about 1/4. And I find that you got that 25, 50, 75, 100%. If you want to get off the mark quickly, then you can whack it all the way up. But actually it becomes quite difficult to drive because you find that you're all the time it feels like you're jumping on the pedal. It can be too fast. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I want to touch on the economy side of it. Now some of you will be thinking, what the hell do you want to have an economy on the sprint booster? Surely that's like contradiction in terms. Well, actually not. This car has got a pretty hefty rear end on it. It's obviously rear-wheel drive. It got some big old fat tyres at the back. And as anyone of you who has driven an automatic in the snow and the ice, these things can be a little bit exciting, to say the least. Now what I found that little E does, which is E or E+, is think of it in the opposite to what I've told you about when you put your foot on the throttle. Now it feels like you put your foot down and it's almost as if you've got your foot brake on. It somehow it's just that much slower. It feels like you're only got about half the amount of speed to which you would normally do. The acceleration, as in how fast it starts to pick up speed, is a lot slower. It's like a delayed response. So if you have it on full E+, when you put your foot down, it's almost as if, the best way to describe it is, imagine if you started the car in 2nd or 3rd gear. When you're in that gear, it pulls away really slowly. That's the best way I can describe it. You've got this slow pull away. And what actually that is really helpful is when it is icy and snowy, it stops the rear wheels from spinning. It gives you just that bit more control. So A, as well as being more economical, although it can be a little bit kind of slow, monotonous, but B, in icy weather, that actually does have a bonus. It's a benefit in having that slower pickup. It stops the wheels spinning. So look, I hope you found this useful. There's lots of other videos I've done on similar types of things, but the important thing about these sprint boosters is, to recap, it doesn't take a long time to install. They don't cost very much. You can always turn it off, to which also you've got six settings that you can play with. So I'd recommend it. A lot of people have debunked these, saying that they're no good, so I hope what I've given you is a bit of food for thought, and I'd really suggest you go out and buy one of these. They're dead easy to install and it's a lot of fun. And I tell you what, you'll notice it, that one day where you want to get off the line really quickly, it will help you. It really will. And likewise, that day when it's really snowy and icy, remember, you've got that little trick up your sleeve as well. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Let's move on, 'cause it's time to move